Hi Reddit. I've been having some creepy things happen with my new neighbor in my apartment complex recently. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just overreacting, but I would love a second opinion. I am a 24-year-old female college student living 2 blocks from school. I've lived in the same spot for 2 years and I've never had any issues. I have a small emotional support dog that lives with me too. This will be important later. Things just got weird this last month. A guy moved into the apartment below me. His apartment is to the right of the only stairwell leading up to my house. I always have to walk by his door to walk to class, check my mail, or get into my car. To describe him, he honestly reminds me a lot of Norman Bates. Quiet, strange, small build, pale skin, and bright blue eyes. Something about him just seems off. I first met him when I was trying to leave my apartment. I was about to back up when some jerk pulled his car, blocking me from exiting. I was getting out of my car to ask him to pull forward when my new neighbor was also getting into his car. Instead of letting me speak to the guy, he told him to move, and I politely said thank you and left. The next day he was waiting outside by his bike to go to class. He instead follows me up a hill to make small talk. He asked me a lot of questions, which made me feel a little interrogated. Some of the questions were like, where are you from? How old are you? Are you single? How long have you been here? 2 days later, on a Saturday, he knocks on my door forcefully at 8 a.m. I jump out of my sleep and look through the peephole to see him standing there rocking back and forth. Mind you, I've only seen him twice and we've never had a real conversation other than him trying to pry into my life like he knows me. He knocks on my door 3 more times and finally slips something underneath it and leaves. I wait about 10 minutes and I open the door to find a note. It said, "Hello there, neighbor. I just have a few questions about your dog. How do you get away with having her? I want to get one, but don't know how. I'd love to hear more. Cheers and kindest regards, Jimmy. P.S. Here's my number. Please text me." I decided not to text him because I don't like telling every person about why I have my dog. It's no one's business but mine and my realtor's. I also was uncomfortable with the fact that he came to my door with no knowledge I lived in this specific unit. That's when things started to happen. He waits till I leave for school and rides his bike behind me. 2 weeks ago I had to make several trips to my car because I bought groceries, and he stood by his window and watched me the entire time. Every time I go outside now, he watches me with his blinds open. He knows I notice him, but he doesn't seem to care. He just stares at me with a blank, lustful, or sinister look in his eyes. Yesterday I took my dog outside and he came outside his house and stood at the back of the building to watch us play in the grass. He just stared at me. When I wanted to come back inside, he just watched me walk upstairs and past him while he just had a cold look on his face. I've never been a woman who scares easily. I can take care of my own, but he's making me feel very, very uneasy. When I was 19, I hung out with a great group of friends I'd known throughout high school. Mark, Roy, O, Dan, and Rob. This particular summer we had gotten a bit closer and hung out practically every night, spending the scorching Texas heat indoors while waiting to goof off once the sun began to set. Our main hangout spot was usually at O's home. His mother was very nice and let us use their attic freely, so long as we treated their home with respect, which of course we did. However, O didn't exactly live in the safest part of town. Not that we ever felt unsafe. It was just the kind of place where we were told to keep our wits about us. This particular evening was special since the guys had each bought themselves new skateboards and wanted to spend the night trying them out. I was the only girl, and while I loved the boys, sometimes I just wanted time away from their antics to be by myself. I didn't want to go home or anything. It was just one of those moments where I wanted to walk and clear my head for a few minutes. This was pretty normal for me, and the guys respected that I wanted my space at times. However, They always insisted one of them go with me if it was after dark. I was only 5'1" and barely weighed 105 pounds, so I usually understood that they just wanted to make sure I was safe in the rougher neighborhood. So, the guys volunteered Roy to go with me, and he, with a groan, grabbed a skateboard and complied. I felt bad for that because I needed to get some air. He was missing out on all the fun, but he reassured me that he was fine. We walked for a little while before he asked if I'd be okay by myself while he took his board and rode around the area super quick. I could see our group of friends from where we stood, and while it was really dark, I felt safe. So I told Roy I'll be fine, and I'd wait for him on the curb we were at. He said again that he'd be back quickly, and off he went. I sat on the curb for a while, taking in a nice breeze and enjoying alone time, when I noticed a worn-down black car pulling up to the four-way stop close by. There was nothing particularly special about it, so my attention drifted back over to my friends, who were still enjoying themselves. By the time I looked back, the car was still there. I saw no other cars at the stop, so I found it odd that it had yet to take off. I reasoned that they were probably distracted by their phone, or kids, or something small like that. Regardless, their lingering presence was starting to unsettle me. When I checked the time, I realized Roy had been gone for nearly 10 minutes now, and I was beginning to get a little anxious. The car remained stationary for another few minutes before it finally started to move again. It made a left turn down another street, and I instantly felt more at ease now that it was gone. Roy's quick ride was taking a little too long, and at 15 minutes, I was done waiting for him, dusted myself off, and prepared to make my way back to the group. As I prepared to take a step, I noticed a black car was back at the four-way stop again. This time, the lights were off. The car was clearly on. I could hear the engine, but it, again, was just parked there. Because the headlights were off, I could clearly see two men sitting there, just staring at me. I kept telling myself I was overthinking the situation, that they weren't looking at me, but maybe they were just lost. That's when the car started moving again, very slowly, this time straight towards the area where I was at. Even though they were moving slowly, I didn't want to cross the street until after they passed me. I don't know why, but something was telling me just to wait. Once I saw the car slowly going past me, I started making my way forward and towards my group of friends, when all of a sudden the black car came to a screeching brake. It caught me off guard. My heart skipped a beat. I took a few steps back up onto the curb. I could see now that the car was very beaten up, with peeled off purple window tint, yet it was still too dark for me to see inside through the side and back windows. I tried walking behind and away from the car, but they quickly reversed and put themselves between me and the other side of the street. I barely had time to react to this before the passenger side door opened sharply and a tallish man with long, dark, unkempt hair stepped out and said in a very creepy voice, "Get in the car." He didn't yell. In fact, he hardly raised his voice at all, but just the way he said it made my blood run cold. He was staring at me with so much hate in his eyes. I had no idea who this man was, but I felt his hate in my core. I wanted to run, but my feet wouldn't react. I could hear the driver yelling too, "Hurry up!" as a long-haired man quickly reached out to grab my arm. I pulled away and tried to yell out, but my voice felt so small. He was trying to get me in that car, and if he was successful, I knew that would be it for me. The driver opened his door in what I'm assuming was his attempt to come over and help his friend get me in the car. When I heard the irate yells coming from the other side of the street and getting closer, the boys, my boys, were screaming at the men to get away from me. I couldn't see them, but I could hear their heavy footsteps getting louder. That's when the long-haired man let me go, and he and the driver ran back inside the car and peeled out. My friends got to me, and Mark and Dan tried, unsuccessfully, to catch up to the car on their skateboards. When we regrouped, they asked me if I was alright, but I honestly was too scared to really say anything. I think I must have been shaking because the guys hugged me and kept telling me I was okay. Just then, Roy skates towards us, asking what the hell happened. Mark started yelling at him for leaving me alone, and I honestly thought he was going to punch him. I kept trying to explain it wasn't Roy's fault, but everyone was too pumped up on adrenaline to listen to anything. That's when we all noticed the same goddamn car was back. They began to circle the lot, peeling out loudly around us, and just staring us down. I'm sure the boys must have also been scared, but still they stared back at the two men, holding up the skateboards like they were preparing to use them as bats. We must have made enough commotion at some point because someone must have called the cops on us. We could hear the police sirens in the distance blaring and getting closer. That's when the guys in the car got the hell out of Dodge and drove down another street out of the neighborhood. As soon as they left, we all ran back to O's house. Someone said we should go back and tell the police what happened, and in retrospect, we should have. But after everything, I just wanted to go home and forget that night ever happened. I'm 30 now, and unfortunately, I still remember that event clearly. I haven't spoken to the boys in a while, but I do talk to O occasionally. Every time we talk, that crazy night is brought up, and I realize just how young and scared we were. To those two guys who tried to kidnap me, let's never meet again.